This time 6 years ago, I graduated from college with a degree in English and creative writing. Since then, I've had a lot of questions about whether or not studying creative writing in an academic setting was actually worth it, which is an insane thing to ask someone who just spent like thousands of dollars and the past 5 years of her life studying the subject, but I digress. And yet it is a valid question because studying creative writing is such a huge commitment, especially in the setting of like a college or a university. In this video, we are going to talk all about my personal experience in a creative writing program. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you my response to that question. Is it worth it to get a degree in creative writing? If you're new here, hi, hello, my name is Charlotte E. Craig and I am a fantasy author sharing my journey here on YouTube. As always, I hope this video encourages and inspires you to chase your author dreams. Let's just get right into it, shall we? Okay. Before we fully dive into this video, I just want to give a disclaimer that everything I'm about to discuss is fully my opinion.
That's my opinion!
Based on my personal experience in a particular creative writing program. Everyone is going to have a different experience with this because it's shaped by so many different factors. Where you're at in your writing journey, what your goals are as a writer, who your professors are. It's just like a plethora of things that shape our individual experiences with this. I'm going to try to keep my response based on like a bunch of just general pros and cons about the program and about just studying creative writing in school in general. But truthfully, my answer will still be impacted by my personal experience because, oh boy, was there an experience.
You always say I want to experience things, but I don't think you actually want to experience things because you would experience it if you wanted to experience things. I don't know what you're talking about.
On that note, I think it's important that I give you guys just a bit of a backstory as to why I wanted to study creative writing in the first place, as well as how I came to that decision and just some of the contextual factors that did shape my experience. So let's flash back to young college freshman Charlotte, shall we? Also, if I keep looking down, it's because I do have my script in front of me. I don't normally script videos, but for this video, there's so much I could talk about. I decided that I needed a script of some sort. So the first piece of context I think we need to get out of the way is that I actually went to school in Toronto, Canada. I live in Central Florida now, but I am Canadian down. Don't let me being in Florida fool you. All right, this piece of context is a little bit important because the post-secondary school experience in Canada is a little bit different than it is in the United States. The first difference is that I attended a university, not a college. In Canada, those are different things. You get different certifications based on which one you choose to study at. Because I was at a university, I actually was in a like 4 to 5 year program where I was earning a Bachelor of Arts. The main reason I bring this up is also because I probably will be using university and college interchangeably throughout this video. So if you're confused, I apologize. Also, just refer back to this explanation. So moving on, I went to university already knowing that I wanted to be an author. I had been writing for a few years at this point. I had been in like a writing group at my church, and I also at this point in time when I was starting college had self-published the first version of my novel, The Winds of Destiny. The Winds of Destiny is a YA portal fantasy novel that I have since completely rewritten and that I'm currently preparing to query. If you want to know more about this novel, I have a link in the description to my previous vlog where I kind of just go into a deeper fleshed out pitch of what the story is about. And I also have a link to a playlist of vlogs that I have been filming and documenting my journey of just rewriting this whole book. Anyways, let's move on. The reason I went to college was because firstly, I just felt like I needed a degree for like life in general. I say this because I didn't ever really feel like I needed to go to university to be an author. Like I did not feel like I needed to study creative writing for this to be my path. I just knew that going to get my degree, going through like the hard work of just being a post-secondary student was going to be really good for my character. But really I went because I knew that I wanted to study English literature. I knew that doing that and studying creative writing together was only going to make me a stronger writer. And Spoiler alert, it definitely did, but we'll get into that later in this video. The creative writing piece of my program didn't actually start until my second year. We had to take an introductory course to the program. And then at the end of that class, we had to submit a portfolio and an application to apply for like the actual creative writing program. I remember my friends and I that I like met through some of my other classes, we were so scared to apply to this program. All of us were pretty talented and skilled writers for where we were at and like our ages and everything. Like I do feel like generally speaking, we were on the right path, and we were still so nervous to get in because the faculty just made it feel so impossible to get into this program. And then we found out that everyone who applied got into the program. That was really frustrating and honestly very like disheartening and disappointing. I feel like because we just like spent all that time being so stressed out for what, like, but honestly, I do think that that was the first red flag that we should have clocked immediately. That should have been the sign that this was gonna be not exactly what we were hoping for. Again, speaking from my personal experience, this is not the same for everyone. If you couldn't tell, my experience was cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas? Oh, no, you don't. You don't use the bananas. No, bananas.
But we should have taken that red flag a little bit more seriously, if only to level our expectations of what we were actually getting ourselves into. Because initially, my desire was that creative writing was actually going to be my major. Then we started the program, and that changed very quickly for me, actually. I'm gonna need my emotional support water bottle for this portion of the video. So unfortunately, there were a lot of cons to my experience in this creative writing program. This was a traumatic experience for myself and my friends. And honestly, I would not have gotten through this program if it was not for them. Like I said, I am going to try to keep these sections of the video as general as possible. I really don't want to get into just the weeds of everything. I don't know how helpful that is. So I'm gonna try to break it down as much as possible. But again, my personal experience probably will come up in some of these cons. So just keep that in mind. The first and biggest issue that I had with this program was the fact that we did not once talk about like the anatomy of story. Not one of our classes talked about how to write authentic characters, how character decisions and motivations shape plot, promises and payoffs. We didn't learn any of that. We didn't learn anything about how to write a good story. There was nothing to teach us about how a good story is formed and structured, how to take an idea and how to turn it into a narrative. Like, this class was just entirely focused on how to craft good prose and poetry. I learned how to write a bomb-ass description about a flower, but nothing about how to write a story. Like, I did not learn half of what I know about like story structure and storytelling in general until after I went through this program. I graduated during COVID, by the way. So fun. It was literally right after I graduated that I went and I watched Brandon Sanderson's lecture series on writing fantasy and sci-fi, where like I actually learned anything about storytelling and story structure and writing characters and just, you know, like all the things that are kind of really important for your writing. To this day, this still pisses me off to my core. Because no matter if you're writing short fiction or a full-length novel, knowing how to write a story is quite possibly like the most important thing that you could learn. And of course, like in high school and everything, like this was talked about. We went through like the hero's journey, but at a university level course, I was expecting for us to just like dive a little bit deeper into that. I bring this to light because after, you know, some reflection, but also after talking to other people who have been through a creative writing program, this is the thing about these classes. Like, this is the thing. The point of this class is literally just to learn how to write good prose, how to write good descriptions, use literary devices, how to create subtext, how to write tension, showing versus telling, etc. Like, these are excellent things to learn, and they are things that I think definitely did strengthen my writing. I feel like we should have at least had a few classes on story and storytelling, because your story structure is the scaffolding that pretty prose sits on. Without it, it's just pretty writing, which there is a time and place for that. I feel like I was gypped, okay? I feel like I missed out on so much education about that. And that's something that, like, to this day, I am really upset about still, clearly. And something that I know is kind of general for like an undergraduate creative writing program. Again, like, I did not go on to do my master's in creative writing. I did not go get like a PhD in creative writing. I'm strictly talking about like my bachelor's experience. I still think we should have talked about story at some point. But anyways. Another thing that I found was a bit of a downside to this program was the fact that like we weren't allowed to write what we wanted to. I write fantasy. I love genre fiction. I was not allowed to submit any pieces that were remotely fantasy. We were forced to write literary fiction. It was so bad. Oh my God. Looking back on this now, I understand why our professors needed it to be that way, I guess. Like, for marking and grading sake, to like make sure that she is grading us on the things that she's teaching, it does kind of make sense. And I would have been fine with that if she gave us that explanation. No. Instead, my professor would go on rants about how genre fiction is not good fiction, how commercial fiction is not art. The literary fiction snobbery that I experienced in this class is what made me like never want to read literary fiction again. I have since healed from that because I do enjoy literary fiction now. I very much do. But this was a long journey for me because this class my professor just would go on so many rants about genre fiction, and God forbid I told her I wrote young adult. Another thing that I found really difficult about this program was the fact that I did not have as much time to work on my own writing. In my mind, I thought that being in a creative writing class, I was at some point going to get the chance to share my other work with people and that we were going to be able to workshop some of my personal writing. I thought everyone was going to get a chance to do that, and I thought that we were going to get the chance to at least workshop our own pieces. During like me obtaining my degree, I was still writing. Like, I actually was writing the sequel to The Winds of Destiny because all my other classes were also just draining me mentally and creatively. You know, I had hope that maybe my creative writing class was going to be where I just was fueled again, but the complete opposite happened. Like, because I had to fight so hard to come up with story ideas and poetry ideas for my creative writing class, and I was spending so much time writing those projects and assignments, I had very, 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 very little energy and time left to work on my own novel. Thinking back on it now, it is kind of sad because I do think I would have made a lot more progress on my own projects if I was not in that class. The final con that I experienced, we had to submit stories for critiques and grading very, very, very quickly. Like, I'm talking a story a week. For context, some people take years to write a short story. This is my issue with just, you know, English and creative writing from an academic standpoint in general, is just like, there's no way you're submitting your best work. There's no way. And I certainly wasn't when it came to, you know, this particular program. Like, I was submitting short stories that, number one, weren't in the genre I loved. They were things I was not proud of because I did not have the time to flesh out a good idea. I did not know how to take that idea and turn it into an actual story that people would enjoy reading. Like, but this one was really hard because it meant that my best work was never getting critiqued. The work that I was submitting for the class to judge for a grade, by the way, was not my best. And again, this was a mixture of just like the way that critique groups and stuff were run in this course that I think just created just the foundation for a very toxic environment. That plus it not being your best work, plus people getting graded for participation, that made me feel really insecure about my writing, quite honestly. And like, if it was not for my friends in that class, if we did not stick together the way that we did and encourage each other the way that we did and actually like read each other's writing outside of class together, I know I would have left there feeling that I was not a good writer. And those thoughts really started to get to me when I was in that class because it was just so toxic. Like, it was such a bad environment it was not a healthy critique setting. Okay, all of this being said, there is always a ray of light on the horizon, even in the darkest of tunnels, okay? There's always something positive that we can take from bad experiences, right? And honestly, while my experience in this program was honestly pretty horrible, I still walked away feeling like I gained something of value. The thing about many of the issues I had with this program is that most of it, but certainly not all of it, was uncomfortable. Writing outside my genre. Reading and studying a wide range of books like the classics, Shakespeare, novels that have shaped entire communities and cultures. Having to look at my ordinary life, find inspiration, and write stories about it. Stretching and honing my ability to write good metaphors, good foreshadowing. Learning how to use every literary device you can imagine. Getting feedback on drafts of my work, like even though that was a toxic way of doing it, being able to just stand there and get my work ripped apart, whether it was honest or people were saying things for a grade, that builds thick skin, okay? All of this was so uncomfortable. At the end of the day, it did enrich my passion and my skills as a writer. I did walk away from this class feeling like I had grown, that I had gained something, and that I was a stronger writer than I was when I started. But I think the biggest thing from this class that I gained was the fact that I was writing constantly. Even though it wasn't my own stories, I was still writing. And I was writing things that I would not have written if I was not in this class. It made me sit and think about what I was writing. Like if I was going to describe something, okay, what's a way of describing it that maybe is poetic in a way that I wouldn't have described it before? Showing versus telling, okay? Like all these things I still use today. I think the other thing though that I think really stretched me was the fact that I wasn't writing in the genre that I enjoyed writing in. And that forced me to find ways to bring in some of the key elements of my stories and find ways to explore them. So like something that I did was if, you know, we had to write a short story using a certain literary device or something like that. I don't even really remember what our assignments were, but I remember writing stories where I would take characters I already had built that already exist in my head and I put them in a completely different situation, and it helped me really explore, you know, the dynamics between those relationships, that particular character's personality, that character's backstory. And that was a way that I was able to bring in my own work to the classroom, and I was able to even just workshop my own stories in ways that I, again, probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't for this class, if it wasn't for the discomfort that I was sitting in every time I was in that room. The toxic stuff aside, these other things are just basic things that are in the structure of a creative writing program. Those things did make me a stronger writer. Like I can't sit here and tell you that I had this horrible experience and I didn't learn anything and all this stuff. Like I did learn stuff and I still use it today. And I can see, even just talking now and reflecting now with you guys, like I see how those skills and everything I learned in those few years has shaped and strengthened my writing. So I can honestly say that this creative writing program did make me a stronger writer. And I guess that leads us back to the initial question of this video. Was getting my creative writing degree worth it? And my answer to that question is yes, and also no. I do think that it was worth it for me to invest in myself academically in this way. It was worth it for me to be in a creative writing program. I learned a lot, but could I have learned all of that outside of a classroom, outside of an academic setting? Yes. And honestly, it's a hot take. I think I actually learned more after I graduated from that program than I did while I was in it. It's safe to say that I learned more from the free resources available thanks to authors, editors, teams of other writers who are online sharing their knowledge and their experience and choosing alongside their passion for writing to educate other writers. Again, I bring up the Brandon Sanderson lecture series because that series, you have to know, was life-changing for me. I had never never heard anyone talk about story and character the way that he did, and in the context of a genre that I love to write and I love to read. That whole series opened up the floodgates for me to then go read Save the Cat, to then read Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel, to find more interviews of writers talking about their process and learning just more and more and more. Like, I was so hungry to learn more about story because I did miss out on that. Even since 2020, when I watched that Brandon Sanderson lecture series, there are so many more resources available for you as a writer online now. There's Readsy Learning, who are providing excellent workshops and blog posts and connecting you with other people in the industry. Readsy is a hub for magical things. This is not sponsored by them at all, but Readsy, I got you. So many resources on Readsy, Masterclass, Skillshare, authors selling courses on their website. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand? I just feel like we're in a place right now where there's so much education out there that's available to you, and really it's up to you if you're willing to learn it. And most of these resources will teach you exactly what I learned in my creative writing classes and so much more, obviously. They taught me more than what I learned in 3 years in that program. You do not need to spend thousands of dollars on a creative writing program and 3 to 5 years of your life in a classroom to become a good writer. In fact, I think that the key to becoming a good writer is to do the very thing that sometimes is really hard to do, and it seems obvious, but it is to just keep writing. It is to keep writing when it's hard. It is to keep showing up to the page when you really don't want to. It is being consistent, being willing to learn, to go find the things that you need to work on. It is knowing when to take feedback from people. It is like finding other writers to help you with that and being open to their feedback. It's prioritizing reading a lot and honestly reading outside of the genre you write in. All of these things are skills that you can do without spending $1 on a class. So if you're on the fence about whether or not you want to go get your degree in creative writing, just know that if you choose that path, it will be worth it. And if you choose to go another route, there are so many wonderful writers out there that you can still learn from outside of a college or university setting. Anyways, I hope you guys found this video helpful in just some way, especially those of you who are thinking about pursuing creative writing in your education. I really hope that you just found some value in my experience, whether it be, a list of red flags to look out for, or some of the positive things that I mentioned that I learned throughout my journey. If you did find this helpful or at least a little bit relatable, please feel free to leave a like on this video. Also, if any of you are graduates of a creative writing degree program or are currently studying it in school, please let me know some of your thoughts on your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear what you found useful and helpful from your experience, what you wish was different, what was traumatic. Honestly, I want it all. So please just let me know in the comments because I'm super curious as to what other people have experienced in this kind of program. And that's all from me. As always, I wish you the best in your writing, and thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.